Alright guys, welcome back to What Would They Think? And basically this is where two characters, not really so much fight, but I kind of talk about what would it be like if these two characters, kind of just met and just hung out. What would they think of one another in, different kinds of scenarios? So, I'm going to start with, was just saying that I thought about it and I was like, yeah, these two characters might have a lot in common. And those two being Zuko and Luke Skywalker. So what would Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Luke Skywalker, what would it be like if Zuko and Luke met? I think it would be kind of interesting because, both of them have very, different views on destiny. Zuko was not so much with his destiny, he always thought about reclaiming his honor, whereas Luke kind of saw that his destiny was to become a great Jedi, like his father. So, I think it would be kind of interesting, first and foremost, that it wouldn't be so much destiny, maybe talking about their dads, like just Zuko and Luke kind of kicking back and being like, oh, your dad, was part of a 100-year war. My dad was part of a galactic empire and was the reason why my sister and I were split up. Not to mention, we were all, he was also, a monster in of himself, and also took off my hand and nearly killed me. And Zuko would respond with, yeah, my dad may be bad, but at least you have a better sister. So, man, their families would be it would be very interesting to see them just talk about their families and how, again, Ozai, talking about Ozai and Vader, and how Luke saw the good in his, in his father. There was no good in Ozai, so I think, him and Luke would be kind of drawing the line on that, like Luke trying to say, well, maybe there's some good in your father. No, there's not. Don't even try. There's no good in my sister either. At least your dad tried to save you, and your sister, who you kissed, which is weird, by the way, also, you guys are on good terms now. I have a pretty shitty family, so I think Luke wins out on that. But it would be interesting to see them have a conversation on that. But getting back to their destinies, I think they would, kind of talk about that, because destinies were part of big things with Zuko and Luke's storylines. Obviously, Zuko initially thought that his destiny was to capture the Avatar and reclaim his honor, but that changed. And Luke's kind of pretty much stayed the same, because Luke was all about, becoming a great Jedi like his father. Goes without saying that he did. But I think they would both kind of agree that destiny has a funny way of working. So I think they would be interested, like, yeah, I just thought, Luke would be like, yeah, I just thought that, when I would become a Jedi and just instantly become a great warrior. Man, was I wrong. And I think Zuko would be like, preach. I just thought I'd be, capture the Avatar and, go back and, rule alongside my father. That didn't work out, and I ended up betraying the country that I love and working with the guy I was supposed to capture, and we overthrew my father. I became the new Fire Lord. And Luke would be like, dude, you seriously have some family problems. But yeah, on a personal level, I would say that, Luke, this would be a point if I was... I know... tongue-tied. I know that I'm using in this image right here a kind of a Luke from, somewhere before, before Episode 6. But it would be, after Episode 6, Luke that Zuko would be talking with. He'd be the one... I could just imagine Luke and Zuko having a cup of tea together, like them just kicking back, drinking tea, and just, talking about all the different, all the different adventures they've had. Luke, I think it would be great to, see them just talk about their teachers as well. Oh, you got trained by a old man in the ways of ancient fighting styles? Preach. How old was your guy? Well, I had two trainers. They were both pretty old. One was kind of over 800 years old, but yeah, how old was yours? Around his 80s, so you kind of beat me on experience for masters. Yeah. Among other things, I think it would be interesting to see, like, Zuko and Luke just kind of discuss how they've gone about, fulfilling, new destinies, whereas, Luke helped rebuild the Empire, tried to help rebuild a new republic, although apparently in the new continuity that didn't happen. We'll just have to wait and see the full story on that. Whereas Zuko what helped rebuild the has to, rebuild the Fire Nation's reputation, and after 100 years of war and genocide, that's easier said than done. So, I think they would both agree that, yeah, even though, we beat the bad guys, that didn't mean that every problem just went away. It just means that, yeah, there's just a lot of cleanup to do, and a lot of repairs. So, I think that would be an interesting conversation between the two. I'd also love to see Zuko want to see, Luke's lightsaber in action. I think he would be very curious, because they're both, great swordsmen. I think it would be I think Zuko would be, even though Zuko's never been, like, a fanboy of anything, he'd be like, can I see how your lightsaber works? I mean, I don't want to hold it, but can you show me how, can you show it to me? And I think Zuko would be very curious to see how a lightsaber works. And I think it would be cool to see, Luke, it would be very curious to see how firebending works. Whether it's something, I think he would be convinced, like, maybe it's something from, like, it's a form of the Force, where, someone can generate that kind of power within them, kind of like how they could form Force lightning. But Zuko would be like, it's not magic, it's not the Force, it's just firebending. We just do it. So, I'd be curious, whereas I think Zuko would be curious to see how the Force works, and I'd also love to see them, like, mind trick Sokka. Like they just call Sokka into the room, and he'd be like, alright, what'd you need me for, Zuko? You will leave the room. I will leave the room. You will come back into the room. I will come back into the room. God damn it, stop it! Oh, God. This would be nothing short of hilarious for pretty much everyone across the table. So, yeah. But again, there would be I feel like they just share so many adventures, how they kind of grew and progressed. Because again, Zuko was pretty much the bad guy at the start of his at the start of the series. At the start of the movies, Luke was kind of a whiny, over-aggressive bitch. And we saw that slowly dissipate and see him become the true warrior and Jedi Master he was always meant to be. So the two of them, I think, would find a lot of common ground between the both of them. And I'd love to see the family banter between the two. It'd be like, man, your sister's totally psychotic. Yeah, at least I didn't kiss mine. Ooh, and then, Sokka would be in the background and be like, ooh, you need some aloe for that burn, Luke? Anyway. All in all, I think these two would become, close allies and friends, had they ever met. So you guys tell me, what do you think it would be like what would Zuko think of Luke Skywalker? Do you think they'd be friends? What do you think what would they talk about? And what would they kind of be like as just buds? What do you think that would be all about? But anyway, once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later. And yes, before I forget, yes, I understand that Zuko's pretty much, in this kind of scenario, Zuko would be hanging out with the guy who voices his father. In fact, that would just be hilarious to be like, Zuko's like, you sound really familiar. I just can't tell, I just can't put my finger on who you sound like to me. Anyway, once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and you guys tell me, what would it be like if Zuko and Luke Skywalker, what would Zuko think of Luke Skywalker? Anyway, once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.